Hello, Portland.
Hello. Hello. We're here today because we represent two sides of the technology landscape. I'm the co-founder of Switchboard.
A local tech company.
A local tech company.
And I have a consultancy where I work with software companies like Switchboard in designing their products to better serve the people using them.
Switchboard was started here at Wieden & Kennedy's Portland Incubator experiment. And it's very, very simple. On Switchboard, people post asks and offers. So I'll give you a peek of what that looks like. This is Cowrie. Cowrie is a Reed College alumna. And you can see that here she's posted an ask. She's looking for advice on how to ace her interview at Nike. Alumni, they chime in. They offer her connections and resources. And a little while later, Cowrie comes back to report that thanks to these connections, she got the job. My co-founder, Sean, and I, we built Switchboard because we wanted to do exactly this. We wanted to make it easier for people to help themselves and to succeed. A couple of years ago, I was talking to our friend Jake.
Super nice guy.
This is Jake. Jake is awesome. And Jake was like, you should really meet my friend Samuel. Samuel's a user experience designer, and his thinking is pretty unusual in the world of startups. Samuel believes that products should help people succeed. And that's when I started to laugh.
Like everyone here.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Well, yeah, I started to laugh because I didn't come from technology, and so I didn't realize that helping people is actually the exception and not the rule.
It is kind of the exception and not the rule. I was pretty surprised to find that out when I started in user experience as well. I always thought of software as kind of like providing superpowers to us, where with Google Maps, I have this sense of prescience around where traffic jams are happening in the city, and I can reroute accordingly. Or if I want to have a face-to-face conversation with someone across the world, I can just fire up Skype and I'm ready to go. But a lot of product companies don't seem to be that invested in endowing people with superpowers and are more concerned with what their users can do for them.
Maybe we should describe kind of what are the metrics that companies sort of look at when they're building these products.
Sure. So one of the biggest that a lot of companies will look at is something called user growth, which is essentially the amount of people who are using the product at any given time growing over time. And we can see here with Instagram, around the time that they were acquired by Facebook for $1 billion, they have this compound, almost exponential growth, which is really, really attractive to venture capitalists and acquiring parties.
It's very sexy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And on Switchboard, actually, it's much more important that we just have the exact number of people there to solve the problem. For example, in Cowrie's case, she didn't need 40 million people. She just needed 3 people to help her solve her problem. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a quantity over quality kind of thing, or the other way around.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's quality over quantity.
Right.
Yeah.
So in that same way, there's another metric that a lot of companies look at, which is called time on site. We mentioned Facebook, Instagram, and things along those lines, and their business models are all predicated on generating ad revenue. And if they want to make more money from ads, the only way to do that is to have more people look at more ads for longer. And this results in a situation where when we think we're using these products on our phones or on our laptops or tablets, we're not really using the products are using us. Our attention is the product.
This is super valuable for something like Facebook because their business model, it relies on my time on the site. But when it comes to Cowrie, I don't want to take any more of her time. I want her to go on and find what she needs. I would love for her to come back and help another person the way that she was helped. But at the end of the day, I'm just happiest knowing that she's like kicking ass at her new job at Nike. That's what I want her to be doing. So we built a company where our critical metric is value, not time on site, not user growth. It's value. It's the difference between extracting wealth and creating value, and it turns out that that business model is pretty much unfundable in the world of startups and venture capital. This is really weird to me because these products are really, really valuable. In fact, I think people pay premium for them. A couple of months ago, I was talking to Rick Tarosi.
Rick Tarozzi, also a super nice guy.
Shout out to Rick. Shout out to Rick. And Rick is, for those of you who don't know, Rick is kind of the fairy godfather of the Portland startup scene. And I was talking to him about how unfortunate it is that we have all of these incredible companies here in Portland that really seem to be struggling to find funding right now. And Rick was like, you know, it actually goes back to the Oregon Trail. And I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, it goes back to the Oregon Trail. You know, people went to California to strike it rich, but people came to Oregon because they wanted to build a life.
We looked into this, and it's true. On the Oregon Trail in the mid-1800s, there was a fork in the road where people were faced with a decision. They could either continue on the Oregon Trail to Oregon and build a life with the skills that they had as carpenters and farmers and generate a sustainable community, or they could cut south to California and participate in the gold rush, hoping to strike it rich by extracting wealth from the environment.
So there's always been this distinction between the California gamblers and the Oregon builders. In fact, for those of you who have played the video game, the Oregon Trail,
Which has the best cover.
there's a raccoon. There's a raccoon.
He's operating the controls.
Yeah, okay. So for those of you who have played the game Oregon Trail, you might not have remembered this part, but when you sign up, you have to choose an occupation, and I'll read you what it says. You receive points for your occupation in this new land. Because more farmers and carpenters were needed than bankers, you receive double points upon arriving in Oregon as a carpenter and triple points for arriving as a farmer.
And so regardless of going to California or Oregon, the people who made those decisions at that fork in the road brought the values that they had to those environments, and those values are reflected in those environments to this day. Specifically in Portland, we have a world-renowned urban growth boundary, world-class public transportation.
All of us know the list. It goes on and on. Just a couple blocks away from here, that waterfront park, it used to be a highway, and we chose to make it into a park. We're all familiar with San Francisco, with the booms and busts, with the Silicon Valley bubbles, the ostracization of its very own citizens. But we are here today because we've chosen a different ethos. We've chosen this livable wonderland over winner takes all.
And at the same time, we're starting to spend more and more time in a different environment that may or may not be such a wonderland after all. There's this mass migration taking place that's bigger than the gold rush, bigger than the Oregon Trail. And it doesn't involve the relocation of our bodies, but it does involve the allocation of our time and our attention, our very selves, really. This mass migration is carrying us more and more every day into the digital frontier.
And what we're bringing to this land is our attention. And the software is currently designed to take it. It taps into our brain chemistry. It releases cycles of dopamine that keep us addicted and keep us wanting more. In fact, right now, designers are studying slot machines and casinos. And if you think that I'm kidding, this is one of the most popular books on how to design for addictive, habit-forming technology.
And so with all of these products that are inspired by addiction and hooking people, it's creating an environment, a digital environment, in which people are seeking to capture as much of our attention as they possibly can. This winds up feeling like an environment much more like the gold rush than the sustainable alternative we have all chosen. But it's not even like as good as the gold rush because our time and attention is the thing that's being extracted and sold, we don't even get to be the prospectors. We are the gold itself.
Let's do some back-of-the-napkin math. So Facebook makes $1.23 in revenue per user per month. And if you figure that a user on average spends 10 hours on Facebook, then the cost of our attention is being sold for 12 cents an hour. Well, this is depressing.
This is depressing. This is totally depressing.
I'm super depressed.
But there is hope.
There is hope.
We are standing at a similar fork in the road right now, and we can decide which values we bring to this new digital environment. Do we want it to be one that's predicated on extracting wealth or building value? And if we want it to be one that's built on value, which values specifically do we want to bring?
So the first person who got me thinking about the values that we bring and how they inform our environments was my friend David.
Which, 4 talks in, 2 goat references already.
Second goat reference. And my friend David turned me onto the work of the architect Christopher Alexander when I was in high school. And I remember when we first met, when Jake introduced us, we had so much to talk about because of this Christopher Alexander connection.
Yeah, I was super excited to hear that you had that.
Yeah. So maybe we should describe why we love his work so much.
Maybe we should.
Let's do it.
Okay, so Christopher Alexander was an architecture professor at UC Berkeley who was commissioned by the University of Oregon to come up and do a full-scale redesign of their campus. And when he did, he brought these radical and humanistic ideals with him that were revolutionary at the time and are still kind of revolutionary to this day. It was all commemorated in a best-selling book called The Oregon Experiment. And his philosophy was as simple as it was profound, that the environments that we experience should be designed to make us better, to make us feel more like ourselves, and that those environments should be able to be directly controlled by the people who are investing themselves in them.
Here are some of the design principles that Christopher Alexander promoted: boundaries, non-separateness, simplicity, and inner calm. Can you imagine if we designed technology in this way? For Christopher Alexander, it comes down to one thing, that we are responsible for building these environments, and that most of all, these environments should make us feel more alive.
It's no accident that Portland makes us feel more alive. Just by being here, we all represent this ethos of sustainable, intentional design. And today, Mata and I are working to bring this Oregon ethos that we already embody to the digital frontier, and we're asking you to join us.
Each community can choose to build the technology that serves us and our needs and our values. We don't have to buy into the San Francisco mentality of gamblers mining for our addiction. Today, products are designed for addiction, and in the future, they will be designed to make us better and more successful. The people who are profiting off of that addiction are advertisers and the Silicon Valley elite. And in the future, we will reinvest in our communities. Today, most founders are straight white men. And in the future, it will be everyone else. So, we're exploring these ideas with a project we're calling Better People, which is trying to promote an ethical and sustainable digital landscape. But in order to do that, we need everyone's help, everyone who's here today. If you are a designer, please bring humane design principles to whatever it is that you are creating. If you're an investor, have the courage to invest in these types of companies. There are so many of them here in Portland alone.
And for all of us as residents of this new digital frontier, we leave you with a final thought. Next time, and every time you use a digital product, ask yourself the Christopher Alexander question: does this make me feel more alive? And if it does, awesome. Let us know. Let everyone that you care about know. These are great things to spread. But if it doesn't make you feel more alive, we challenge you to have the courage to stop using it and instead invest your attention in something much more deserving. Thank you.
Thank you.